Professional YouTubers go to great lengths to create killer content for views. But what happens when those YouTubers cross over and become killers for real? Prepare to delve into the darker side of YouTube as we uncover some of the most chilling and infamous YouTubers to date. You may have heard of some of them, but you may not have. But the question is, could the next YouTube video you watch be made by someone who has taken a life or is about to? Elliot Rodger didn't start out that way, but he certainly left his mark on his victims. Listen to his horrible story. For many who lived there, the seaside town of Isla Vista, California was an idyllic and peaceful place to live. Sadly, few, if any, in the town knew that a hate-filled and misogynistic monster lived in their midst. On the evening of May 22, 2014, that peace was broken, and before the night was out, 14 people were injured, and 7 people would be dead, including the perpetrator himself, YouTuber Elliot Rodger, who took his own life after ending and forever changing the lives of so many others, rather than face the consequences for his actions. But how and why could this happen in such a small community? The short answer is that Elliot was angry towards women about his lack of sexual activity. But does that seem like a reason to kill others? You would think he had it all, because Rodger was the restless yet privileged son of Peter Rodger, a film director and photographer who worked on the Hunger Games. His stepmother was Sumaya Akambun, an actress who appeared in Green Zone alongside Matt Damon in 2010, and who shines in the French version of the television series Real Housewives. But then again, perhaps the following explains a bit more. At the age of 22, Elliot was part of the incel, or involuntary celibate community, a loose group of men who are angry at the world because women won't have sex with them. Before his rampage, he put out a YouTube video where he rambled about his hatred for sexually active men because he was jealous of them, as well as his hatred for women and how he wanted to punish them. He also sent out a 141-page screed the killer sent to some friends where he lamented that at his age, he never even kissed a girl. In his rage, he stabbed 3 men to death inside his apartment on Seville Road. Elliot Rodger launched his assaults, claiming the lives of 3 men through multiple stabbing incidents. First, Waihan Wang fell victim, followed by Chen Hong, and lastly George Chen. In Elliot's apartment, George Chen, his final victim, suffered a staggering 94 stab wounds. Subsequent discovery of bloodstains in the building's hallway indicated that Rodger may have ambushed 1 or more victims upon their entry, sending shivers down the spines of investigators. Evidence, such as a blood-soaked bath towel and used paper towels in the bathroom, suggested Rodger tried to clean the hallway, revealing a disturbing attempt to conceal the brutality of the crime. The positioning of the victims indicated that each was fatally attacked separately upon arrival. Because what kind of bizarre roommate do you have when it turns out that 2 of the 3 victims were Rodger's roommates?
I just don't know why this happened to our son. It's crazy. This just doesn't make any sense.
After the stabbing spree, Rodger calmly bought coffee before retreating to his car in the apartment parking lot. He uploaded a chilling retribution video and sent his manifesto, triggering alarm from his therapist who reached out to his parents. As his parents raced towards Santa Barbara, Rodger headed to the Alpha Phi sorority house, where he knocked on the front door for a few minutes but no one answered. However, his bloodlust was far from sated. He also shot 3 women outside, 2 of whom died. Following that, he drove to a nearby deli and randomly shot a male student to death. And yet, this defect of humanity still wasn't done. Directly following his previous killings, he drove his BMW SUV recklessly through his town. During his drive, he managed to wound several pedestrians. When the police did intervene, the killer exchanged gunfire with them and took a bullet to the hip. In the immediate aftermath, he attempted to flee, which resulted in him crashing his BMW into a parked car. This may result in a brief but spirited foot chase in some situations. In this case, however, the man who inflicted so much harm on so many in a short time took the coward's way out and ended his own life from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to his head, leaving his surviving family members and families of those he's killed, as well as those who survived his needless onslaught, to deal with the fallout. If you thought the previous story was chilling, Brace yourself for the gripping story of someone else's descent into darkness. Enter the disturbing saga of Samantha Wohlford, a YouTuber whose life took a sinister turn, blurring the lines between truth and deception. In 2015, YouTuber Samantha Wohlford was many things. A young and aspiring YouTuber, harbored dreams of making it big as an actor. Through her videos, she shared glimpses of her personal life, often discussing the challenges of balancing motherhood with her aspirations. At the tender age of 19, she welcomed twins with her high school sweetheart. It wasn't long before she crossed paths with Ernie Ibarra at a local tattoo parlor in 2008, sparking a whirlwind romance. By 2011, Wohlford found herself embracing motherhood yet again, this time with another set of twins, this time with Ibarra. And in 2013, at the age of 24, she welcomed her fifth child into the world, completing her family amidst the backdrop of her budding online presence. However, in short order, she would also prove herself to be a liar, a murderer, a widow, and a convict. The aspiring actress concocted a story that pit her in the role of a lifetime. She claimed to police that one night, 3 masked men broke into the home she shared with Ernie and the kids. What would you do if this happened? You probably would do things very differently than this failed actress. I'm willing to bet that victim isn't top of your list of dream roles, but for Samantha, it was. According to Samantha, the 3 men gagged her and tied her up, but saved their ire for Ernie, as they viciously beat him, took him away from the home, and murdered him. Ultimately, Ibarra was found lifeless in the remote woods of Sand Crossing in Camp County, having succumbed to a fatal gunshot wound. But as police later discovered, Samantha was less a victim and more a mastermind. During questioning, police were able to poke giant holes in her story. One of her claims was that while tied up, she was able to call her mom on a mobile phone somehow using her face, rather than punching in 911.
I didn't dial my mother, I just pushed the first thing that was on there. It had just happened to be my mom.
I think you know exactly who did this. I think the story's made up about the...
As her story continued to unravel, it was discovered that Samantha had in fact not been kidnapped. Instead, she enlisted the help of 3 men, Jose Ponce, Jonathan Sanford, and Octavius Rhymes. For her part, the mother of 5 claimed that she was trapped in an abusive marriage, and she planned to have meth planted in her husband's car and then call the cops. According to her accomplices, however, it was deemed easier just to kill the father of 3 of her children. We don't know exactly who fired the fatal shot, but we do know that it was Samantha and Octavius who conspired on the finer points of the plan. In the aftermath, Ponce and Sanford were charged with aggravated kidnapping and murder. Each man was sentenced to 50 years in prison. For his role, Octavius was sentenced to 93 years in prison. And for the star of the show, who left a family without a son and 5 children without their mother and father, Samantha received a 99-year jail sentence for her starring role in the crime. As we move on to another story of darkness and despair, we delve into the sobering reality of school shootings, a scourge that has sadly become all too familiar in the United States and beyond. It's the sad truth, but because it happens so often, most of these are virtually forgotten the next day. However, this story will remain in your mind for a long time. In 2007, a city in Finland experienced this firsthand. It was the second school shooting in Finland since 1989. On the morning of November 7, 2007, 18-year-old YouTuber Pekka-Eric Auvinen entered his high school and executed 8 people in the space of 28 minutes. He injured 14 others before deciding to commit suicide. You might feel a sense of strangeness knowing that Pekka, with his YouTube channel Natural Selector 89, often spoke about natural disasters as well as shootings. He discussed the Columbine school shooting and the sarin attack in Tokyo.
I got this idea of making an introduction video to my channel.
Additionally, he had videos criticizing other global religions and attempting to refute their existence. In some of these videos, he claimed to be a god and demanded worship. Auvinen was known to advocate for extreme left and right ideologies, such as communism, social Darwinism, and National Socialism. He was also known as an atheist. Was this indicative of being a murderer? There were probably signals to his parents that something was wrong. because they were the ones trying to get help for their son's feelings of depression and anxiety. However, he balked at them. But did they also realize that there was more going on? His exact motives for the mass killing are unclear, though it's believed he was bullied in school. The following indicates which clues point to that. In the months leading up to the murders, Auvinen posted videos in which he praised Columbine shooters, as well as Oklahoma bomber Timothy McVeigh, as well as videos in which he praised those who had gotten revenge on bullies. His videos were so troubling to some that a fellow YouTuber had tried to draw the attention of authorities to Auvinen, fearing he would be a danger to others. That warning went unheeded. Then, the day before he went on a rampage at school, Auvinen posted a video that featured a school explosion to reveal an image of himself pointing a gun at the camera. This was another warning that went ignored. Just a day later, that same gun would be used to murder 6 fellow students, a school nurse, his own teacher, and the school's principal. The boy, who was once a victim, clearly decided to become the victimizer as he systematically marched through the school and randomly fired the weapon. At the end of his rampage, he was like so many others who took their anger out on the innocent, turned the weapon on himself, and ended his own life rather than dealing with the punishment that would have followed. This is exactly how it unfolded on that horrible day. Close to noon, Pekka-Eric Auvinen breached the walls of McCullagh High School. Inside, he targeted and fatally wounded a student in the hallway, then proceeded to the restroom area. Although other students stumbled upon the victim's body, they remained unaware of the gunshot, unknowingly stepping into the path of imminent danger. What unseen horrors lurked within the shadows of the school's corridors? Auvinen's rampage continued as he shot 2 more students near the bathrooms, prompting the school nurse to urgently summon emergency services. Tragically, he didn't stop there. The chaos unfolded in a crescendo of terror as he also claimed the lives of another student and the nurse before fleeing the scene, leaving behind a trail of devastation and grief. Meanwhile, Principal Helena Calmy received word of the unfolding horror at 11:47 a.m. and swiftly directed all students and faculty to secure themselves in their classrooms. Despite her efforts, Auvinen persisted, his presence casting a pall of fear over the once safe corridors. As the minutes ticked by, tension mounted, and the desperate struggle for survival intensified. But how would Principal Calmy and the terrified students navigate the treacherous maze of fear and uncertainty that now enveloped their school, as he was not yet done with his crime? In a chilling turn of events, Auvinen's attempts to set the corridors ablaze with fuel failed, thwarting his plans to wreak further havoc. It was during Principal Calmy's momentary absence, as she stepped out to place a call, that Auvinen crossed paths with her, sealing her fate with a fatal gunshot. Inside a classroom, he brazenly declared a revolution, urging students to embrace chaos before departing without escalating the violence, leaving behind a haunting legacy of terror. Subsequently, Auvinen encountered law enforcement and medical responders, yet his aim faltered, sparing them from his wrath. Ultimately, he turned the gun on himself, bringing an end to the bloodshed. Discovered and rushed to the hospital, he succumbed to his injuries, leaving behind a community shattered by senseless tragedy, grappling with the scars of a day that would forever haunt their memories. How would the survivors begin to piece together their shattered lives in the aftermath of such unfathomable horror? But if you think that was sick, just wait until you hear about the seemingly perfect life of this YouTuber. While wondering how much research he's done on alibis, we're talking about Stephen McCullagh, who had a strong and growing YouTube following, a beautiful girlfriend named Natalie McNally, and best of all, he was going to be a father. At the time, Natalie was 15 weeks pregnant with the couple's first child, though things were much darker below the surface, and it would soon bubble up for the world to see. While Stephen was streaming himself playing a video game for 6 hours, on the 18th of December 2022, the mother of his child was being murdered in her home halfway across the city. At least, that's how it appeared. In reality, the YouTuber had uploaded a video he recorded a week before. Doing so provided him with what he thought was the perfect alibi. Instead, Stephen shut off his phone and made his way to his girlfriend's place. While the world saw him playing GTA, he was instead busy stabbing his pregnant girlfriend in the neck, choking her, and beating her in the head with a blunt object until she died. Then, less than 30 minutes later, he turned on his phone and went home. He also changed his clothes along the way. The last text message the killer sent to his girlfriend was, "Right, I'm away to stream the night away. Wish me luck." And still, things get worse. The day after the murder, Stephen traveled back to his girlfriend's house where he found the body. Initially, he called the police and tried to pin it on someone else. And it worked. Sort of. Stay with me here. Initially, Stephen was arrested by the police and considered to be the prime suspect. However, the YouTube video he posted initially proved to be a good alibi. How could he kill her if he was streaming that whole night? It was only after his initial release from custody that police realized that the video was pre-recorded, and he was re-arrested, and the depth of his crime came out. Stephen had put so much planning into his crime that on the day of the killing, he posted about his live stream on Twitter. This served to add to his alibi. On the night of the murder, he took the bus to her place while covering his face with a mask. He also wore 2 sets of gloves, a pair of latex gloves under a regular pair of gloves, as caught on the bus's CCTV camera. In the end, he was proven guilty despite his claims of innocence. Meanwhile, the level of planning and cold-blooded calculation involved in her murder shocked the court system. But how shocking will the next story be? Because although Natalie's child was never allowed to take a breath, the next horrible thing makes you wonder how many breaths these children were able to take. Because how tragic is it if your breathing is stopped by your own mother? Such was the case with YouTuber Alyssa Dayvault from South Carolina. Before becoming a mother and murderer, Alyssa was a YouTuber who had a growing fan base. In her videos, she demonstrated her skills as a makeup artist and gave tutorials. But you'll never believe what she did. In both 2017 and 2018, Alyssa gave birth to children. She never told anyone, including her mother or boyfriend. Neither of her children lived long enough to see their first birthday. It all started in 2017, when she gave birth to a daughter at home. Rather than seek medical attention or attempt to put the child up for adoption, she instead put the girl's body into a garbage bag and tossed it. But as if this wasn't horrifying enough, a year later, she gave birth to a son in her home. However, this time a medical complication forced her to go to the hospital for excessive bleeding and an infection. This move to save her own life allowed doctors to unwittingly open Pandora's box, which would lead to her downfall. At the hospital, doctors were confused because it appeared she had just given birth, but there was no baby to be found. This led to the authorities getting involved. But what could drive a mother to conceal the births of her own children? At first, Alyssa tried to stonewall the police by denying she'd recently given birth. When she was pressed, though, she finally broke down and confessed. She told them about her 2017 child and her most recent. She told law enforcement that while giving birth to her son, she'd passed out from the pain. When she awoke, she found her son was unconscious. She did what seemed logical at the time. She put the newborn into a trash bag, tied it up, and tossed it away. But here's the thing. This time, it was a full-blown murder. In short order, police got a search warrant and found the body. And what they found was heartbreaking. A medical investigator discovered that the child was alive when he was put into the bag. It was the lack of oxygen from being stuffed into the bag that slowly killed him. And then you hear the reason, which leaves you with even more doubts about this story. Because when they asked her for a motive on the killings, Alyssa, who has 2 older children, claimed that her boyfriend didn't want children. She was so afraid of how he would react that she murdered both of her kids. Alyssa didn't attend her own trial, but for her crimes she was sentenced to 40 years in jail, 20 years for each death. The only ones who received life sentences are the children who suffered a slow death. Will Alyssa ever care, or will her own punishment be worse for her? These harrowing tales illustrate the unsettling reality that the internet, with its seemingly boundless opportunities for expression and connection, also provides a platform for the darkest and most disturbing aspects of the human psyche. By examining the stories of Elliot Rodger, Samantha Wohlford, Pekka-Eric Auvinen, Stephen McCullagh, and Alyssa Dayvault, we are confronted with the alarming fact that some individuals cross the boundary between the virtual and real world, with devastating consequences. These stories serve as a sobering reminder of the need for awareness, oversight, and action to address the dark sides of online platforms and prevent them from serving as a catalyst for heinous acts in the real world. Hey, if you found this video interesting, the subscribe button is just around the corner somewhere.